Linux, hate it or love it, people seem to flock to it when Microsoft does another oopsie of the month, or when they're still rocking a 2014 MacBook. Thanks to things like the Steam Deck and Chrome OS, Linux has been quietly sneaking into the mainstream. But for new users, jumping into Linux often leads to one thing: decision paralysis. That's right, today we're talking about the fragmentation of Linux distros and why it's a feature, not a bug. So what is this fragmentation thing anyway? To understand it, you've got to know what Linux is. Linux is a free software. You've seen the meme before, I'm sure. I'd just like to interject for a moment. This is not just free as in $0, though it's super cool if you support the developers, but free as in freedom. You can use it, change it, share it, nobody cares, you can do whatever with it. This is important because it means you or your buddy Eric can just take Linux right now and make it your own flavor. That freedom is exactly why there are so many Linux distributions, or distros as they're called. That freedom breeds fragmentation by design. For most Linux users, fragmentation is just the way it is, not so for Windows or Macintosh. Really showing my age there, and it's understandable why. When I say I use Windows, I just use Windows. It's been around for so long that a program from way back then might still run today. That sort of always works is a string of its own, and people just love convenience like that. Meanwhile, on Linux, I can't just say I use Linux. I'm using Ubuntu, Fedora, or Red Hat, or Arch. Each one can feel like its own ecosystem, like it or not, with different support for programs, usability, even down to differences in community. Now, imagine little Timmy that just heard about Linux from his Discord buddy, for example, or your dad who's just getting back into tech after 20 years. So, is it really a surprise that people get overwhelmed before they even start? See, as far back as the mid-90s, Linux was already split into distros like Debian, Slackware, Yggdrasil, and Red Hat. Some names you might recognize even today. Rest in peace, Yggdrasil. Back then, Linux was known as the poor man's Unix. If you couldn't shell out for a pay Unix clone like Coherent, Linux was kind of the next best thing. It wasn't exactly stable and the kernel was stuck in a perpetual version 0.9, but for what it was, Linux worked. It gave people Unix without the price tag. And most importantly, even at the time, the idea of Linux having multiple distributions was already commonplace. We simply knew that's where Linux is veering towards, much to the dismay of the GNU people, but it's not like you can hear them all the way here. I'd just like to interject for a moment. Expanding our scope a bit, this fragmentation might sound familiar because any open source software is bound to fragment over time. Ever wondered why the Steam Deck can just run Windows games despite using Linux? Well, it has a layer that translates all the code bits meant for Windows into something that Linux can understand. That layer is called Proton, and Valve built it by taking an existing project named Wine and improving towards it. Essentially, fragmenting it. And the reason for fragmentation can be anything. People have different ideas, different use cases, different systems. Heck, sometimes you just dislike a designer who works so much, you make that your entire identity. Looking at you, Linux meant. But the beauty of open source is that when you spin up your version of someone else's project, the original doesn't become obsolete, it becomes another choice. And meaningful choices are always good. That Proton thing I mentioned, Valve actually contributed their changes back to Wine, helping them catch up with fixes and patches that Valve themselves have made. That mutualistic relationship is why Linux distros can benefit from each other's existence. But I mention meaningful choice, and that distinction is important. You can have choices that mean absolutely nothing. Just go ask gamers about that sort of thing, they're kind of used to it. But you can also see this happening in browsers as well. This graph I'm showing you might suggest that users have plenty of choices for browsers, but it's misleading. Only some of these browsers are, by themselves, unique. Now, you might be asking, what do you mean by unique? Well, a lot of these browsers are actually taking open source parts of Chrome, called Chromium, to be used in their code. Sometimes, that's what they really are, reskins of Chrome. In effect, users only have a few amounts of actual choice here, and if something breaks in Chromium and Chrome, it would likely break on other browsers based on it as well. It gets worse though. Anyone who remembers the early 2000 browser wars knows Internet Explorer wasn't just bad. It was everywhere. It won by monopoly. It was pre-installed regardless of whether you like it or not, meaning that everyone has to comply with whatever design decisions that Internet Explorer makes. If a site works on other browsers but not Internet Explorer, then you bet that site will get loads of complaint. We're seeing the same with Chrome here. And look, Chrome is a good browser, but the market is fragmented in a way that doesn't create meaningful choice. Your choice is artificial. These browsers are Chrome just with extra features. And sure, you can argue that it is what the users want. But you're in a video talking about Linux, I will slander that sort of monopoly. Now with that said, none of these matters if you're brand new to Linux. You probably just scrolled through DistroWatch, got overwhelmed, and clicked on this video thinking I would give you a recommendation. And you'll be wrong.
I'll use Arch, by the way.
Or at least, that would make for a great video next time. For now, just pick one with the funniest name. And if you can't pronounce it, perfect. Try that one. Fragmentation itself isn't bad. Far from it. Because choice itself isn't bad. It's when choices become irrelevant that they stop being meaningful. As a new user of Linux, you might feel discouraged by all that fragmentation. I know I was, but over time, you'll see that having choice is how we do things here. It's part of the culture, it's what keeps Linux alive and growing. The head of Mageia Linux said it better than me back in 2011. It's not fragmentation that one should fear, but rather repetition, exclusivity, and stagnation. I'm Morgan. That's all from me. Hit like if you liked this video, dislike if otherwise. Consider subscribing if you enjoy introspective tech videos. This channel is still new, so any support is massively appreciated. Thank you.